Central banks have become the new feudalism. All property and wealth are being concentrated into a few hands via fiat and zero interest. Serfdom is the endgame. The federal unemployment boost just ended. More states will end supplemental programs. Meanwhile, the real costs of living went up 15 to 20% in 1 year, not the big lie, CPI. Hysteria continues to fester in the hive mind. Housing prices have grown 2 to 3 times more than wage growth since 2012. The bubble is getting turgid. The bubble will continue until the Amiga variant kills it. Then, total chaos, and only the survivors could care less. Our entire economy has been financialized. When you can make 100 times more money trading stocks than you can working hard all day, you know the system is getting ready to collapse. Employers can't compete with the Fed's money printing. Government can pay workers more to stay home than your customers will pay you for the products or services you provide. Anybody happens to notice that some businesses like Walmart, for example, have been hiring for years, according to their signs posted at the entrances, yet haven't actually hired anyone? The worker shortage isn't because of the health crisis or because they've been incentivized to stay home on unemployment, but rather because these businesses simply can't afford to pay workers. The now hiring signs are there to keep you from seeing what's actually happening economically. There's less to sell. There's less on the shelves. There's less coming in from China. It's all tied together. People are buying less. Everything is falling apart. People with massive debt don't buy stuff. Stimmy is needed now on a regular basis for people to pay monthly bills. Game over. We have a dead economy. Inflation is raging, and pay is lagging behind. Therefore, the point of power pumping the stock market wasn't simply just to push prices upward and make more money for institutional traders, but rather to use it as a channel to funnel life support money to the companies to keep them from going bankrupt. The actual charts, then, are only showing the sheer magnitude of this economic problem. This economy will collapse without perpetual stimmy checks, and they know it. You're going to need a bigger helicopter, Jerome Powell. Welcome back to the Atlantis Report. You are here for your daily dose of the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Please take a second to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to also hit the notification bell. Thank you. Folks, you must realize America as we know her is done. It's over. Prep up and enjoy the decline of the West. Don't work too hard either. Fiat has no real value. Focus on yourself. 2 words: Great Reset. Planned by the Davos Group and its billionaire oligarch members, Federal Reserve fully on board. Run the financial system off the cliff. Then, the Fed steps up with a solution to the problem they helped create. Make the chaos go away by forcing the adoption of an all-digital currency to replace the defunct dollar. A tiny group of oligarchs that control virtually everything. Hegelian dialect. All metrics are down, yet stocks keep on pumping like a train. The Fed is doing more printing than it lets on, and is buying everything. Those that own the private Fed, Rothschilds, etc., will own the world. We just need a few more lockdowns to create a few more distressed sellers, but the market will continue up while everything else collapses. Stocks generally track the amount of currency in circulation over time, so as long as the currency supply is expanding, stock prices go zoom. The top will happen when prices finally explode. In 2008 and 2009, that is what it did. Gas prices exploded, along with commodities and food. I think this will play out the same. They can print money until that money has a direct impact on prices. At some point, prices are going to take off. That will be the end of the free money experiment. The Feds keep printing. Under the market, a lot of puts are being sold. Soon, not even the printing of money can keep up the market for at least the next temporary correction. If ever the Fed stops printing, the crash is guaranteed. An epic market crash is inevitable, which is fueled by the Fed. The stimulus efforts will only exacerbate the downturn. The Fed is manipulating the most important information parameter in the economy, and that's the interest rates. The implosion is going to be spectacular. But the funny part will be, the people will be dealing with skyrocketing prices while having no assets to fall back on. The money printer is used by the government to destroy the financial system. They are out of control with the money printer. Like me, you should have no debt, paid off houses, a number of different commodities of value. There are more than $90 trillion parked in the Caymans for when the dollar is allowed to crash. Timing will be paramount. The idea is to strip every single inch or ounce of private property from Americans and auction it off overseas for 1/20th of a penny on the dollar. We, of course, will be barred from participating. Back in 1971, when the US defaulted on its debt obligations, most thought that the US was cactus. But Henry Kissinger and Tricky Dicky Nixon pulled off the scam of the century and saved the USA. But I gave up setting a date long ago. The 2008 market was an easy call. This one is a dollar collapse market. It should never have been this high through COVID. The real economy has not returned to pre-2020 levels. The market was already overpriced going into the health crisis. And now it is double that, with a poorer economy. QE fever has turned the market into a fast talk about mark to fantasy. In the 1930s, the Americans found margin lending and share buybacks had artificially inflated the markets. And this had led to the Wall Street crash of 1929. What lifted US stocks to 1929 levels in 1929? Margin lending and share buybacks. You can artificially inflate the markets with margin lending and share buybacks. And this is what is happening, just like it did before 1929. What's new? The Fed will now prop up the markets so that any correction is quickly reversed. In the 1930s, they had learned the hard way that inflated asset prices are not a store of wealth. October is looking pretty good for a nice adjustment or crash. Too many entities are waiting for payback from the big guy. If the Democrats do not deliver on the $3.5 trillion package, and there is a protracted debt ceiling fight, the beginning of October could be pretty bumpy. Late September to middle-ish October is historically when crashes happen. Why didn't the Japanese use QE after their financial crisis? Japan saved the banks but left the debt in place. QE couldn't get into the real economy due to a lack of borrowers. The banks were ready to lend, but there were too few borrowers as they were struggling with the debt they had already taken on. This is why the Japanese used fiscal rather than monetary policy. They saved the banks, but they left the debt in place. QE couldn't get into the real economy, but it got into the financial markets. The gap between the economic fundamentals and the US stock market widened until it reached the 1929 levels. This is why the Japanese didn't do much QE until Kuroda, as they knew it wouldn't get into the real economy when people were more concerned with paying off existing debt than taking on new debt. Richard Koo has no idea what Kuroda is doing, and has put this down to him having no central banking experience. Personally, I think Kuroda does know what he's doing. He knows QE can't get into the real economy due to a lack of borrowers, but is using it to inflate asset prices, as this is what QE does best.